So Demos is, as you know, a public policy organization that was really founded on an idea around the link between political and economic inequality. And as we did a strategic planning process over the past 2 years, we decided that we really needed to focus on what were the structural barriers to creating the kind of society here in the U.S. That would really address those two twin, increasingly urgent dilemmas. So we set out to create areas of work, two of which really addressed perfecting our democracy, creating more equality in our democracy, both by reducing the role of money in politics and expanding the freedom to vote. And we also, of course, focused on our long-standing commitment to making new pathways to a more diverse and growing middle class, with a focus on what are those policies to really ensure upward mobility. But at the same time, we also wanted to go beyond just an investigation and an advocacy around specific public policies. We knew that something had gone sort of terribly wrong at a much higher level, which was really at the paradigm level. What is the kind of economic system that our public policies are expressing? And that over the past 40 years in the United States, we had had a very radical paradigm shift that has continued to create the kind of economic and political inequality that we see today. So we partnered with the Rockefeller Foundation, which also has a commitment to equitable growth and resilience, and we're able to devise this convening of, as you see, 23 mostly economists and scholars to go to their amazing estate in Bellagio, Italy in October of this year. It was a globally focused convening. We had participants from India, South Africa, China, Chile, the UK, Ireland, Denmark, as well as a number of people from the United States. And our focus was really to investigate where we were in this moment, where, without much question, the governing dominant economic paradigm had failed. The crash of 2008 was not just a crash in the mortgage-backed securities market, but it was a crash of a paradigm, of a system, of an ideology, of a way of thinking. And yet we have not, as we did in many ways in the aftermath of the crash of 1929, seen the resulting kind of paradigm shift that would usher in a new way of thinking, a new social compact, a new set of structures and systems for really fundamental change. As John Irons likes to say, after the crash in Washington, the policy response was dedicated to 3 T's. Does anybody know what those 3 T's were? Anybody who was debating in Washington at that time? There we go. Targeted, timely, and temporary. Not exactly a paradigm shift. And so at Bellagio, we had an overarching concern about equity, about race, gender, class, national origin, and equity among global populations. We discussed over the 3.5 days the future of work, the current and proper role of financial markets, global governance, corporate structure, and corporate systems. We really tried to also take a step back and investigate what really is a paradigm. Because a paradigm is more than a set of policies. It's more than a set of laws or structures. It's really about a way of seeing. And I'd actually like to pull back in honor of our great graphic designer, Maxwell Holyoke-Kirsch, who put together this logo that we found really inspiring. We felt like it was a way to talk about how we were looking for something that was over the horizon. Can we have the logo back? That's something that was over the horizon, as well as something that was a way of seeing, as well as something that required at its base people. Because a paradigm defines the bounds of socially permissible thought. It defines what is conventional wisdom and what is heresy. It defines what happens in a system automatically without even planning, and what goals we even plan to accomplish. A paradigm defines how we explain inequality. Is it natural? Is it character? Is it systems and structures? It defines what kind of success is socially accepted. It defines the accepted purpose of natural resources. And at Bellagio, we started the conversation by trying to name some of the dominant economic paradigms. We talked about managed capitalism, which we had seen in the post-war era in the U.S. and in social democracies. We talked about neoliberalism or market fundamentalism, which is the creeping dominant ideology that is very much started in the United States, but is spread across the world. We talked about different forms of state-run capitalism. And then we talked about an aspirational, more sustainable, and equitable paradigm that is not yet part of any dominant system, but that we see green shoots of across the globe. We had a series of papers commissioned, and all of them are on the back table behind you, so you should feel free to take some as you go out. There's also a section on the Demos website now where you can find all of them. And the first piece in our book of pre-conference commissioned papers was a provocative piece by Monica Prasad. She really pointed out that America and Europe in the post-war period adopted divergent models of macroeconomic growth. We in the U.S. adopted a purchasing power paradigm, which justified for 30 years high wages, and then afterwards justified financialization and a debt-fueled what she calls mortgage Keynesianism. Whereas Europe encouraged production and investment and taxed consumption and offered a more robust provision of public goods and services. It's very interesting to us that at this moment of weak demand, weaker than normal economic growth, and more importantly, accelerating economic inequality and insecurity for most Americans, we've actually seen progressives championing the consumption model anew, have we not? With the idea of middle-out economics, which has been very inspiring and alluring in a certain sense, because it tries to do the brave work under a paradigm of trickle-down economics to say that we actually need a robust middle class in order to have what under our current paradigm is the ultimate goal, economic growth. It is recasting working and middle-class people as important under this growth-centered paradigm. But two realities are actually troubling that approach. One, there is actually no longer the guarantee that American consumers buying goods on U.S. shelves or purchasing low-wage services will benefit the American economy or other American workers due to globalization and the toxically bad distribution of gains. And second, we are living in an entirely different global ecological paradigm. The realities of resource limits and climate constraints mean that Americans actually must consume less. So what other model, then, do we need to justify a decent standard of living for our people? This question is the one that we have been working to grapple with here at Demos and through the New Economic Paradigms process. While we're still working through this, and this convening is a part of that ongoing conversation, at Demos, we believe that there is an urgent need today for simply more democracy in our economy. More democracy in our economy in multiple ways. Firstly, for people to have more of a say in the economic decision making. We know, and we profile this in a report called Stacked Deck, that particularly on issues of economic policy, it is not the preferences of the vast majority of voters, but rather the donor class that set the path for this country. We need more democracy in our economy because we need more people and communities to have the power to create their own enterprises. We need more democracy in our economy fundamentally because community needs need to be served by our economy. The same way that we assume that a democracy must address issues not just of private but of public concern, our economy must begin to do that as well in a much more structured and deliberate way if we are going to address the problems of climate change and inequity.